Well, you know who should have been gone.
Nice. Tell me who.
Javier Mascherano should have been gone
Whoa, what for?
for getting a red card. Instead, he went to go take a front row seat to watch the game.
Well, technically, that's where he was told he had to go, according to him. Now, here's the problem is he said that's where he was supposed to go, but he also did basically admit to saying he bent the rules to the furthest extent that he could because he wanted to help his players. And we'll get into the whole thing here, but let's back it up a second because this is my favorite story of the week. You mentioned it as well. During Inter Miami's Leagues Cup quarterfinal victory over Tigres, Javier Mascherano was sent off just before halftime. I don't know what he said. I was coming back from a training session, so I didn't get to see the first, you know, 20 minutes of the game. But once we came back, I turned it on. He got sent off, and or rather, I should say the first half of the game. That's really what I should say. I didn't see that, but he got sent off. He comes back and he says, "I'm gone." And then by the start of the second half, like you mentioned, he is sitting in the front row of the right above the bench. Then a camera cuts to him and shows him on the phone talking to somebody very adamantly and pointing on the field. Then the camera cuts and you see his assistant coach standing on the sideline going, "What do you mean?" with his phone in his hand, pointing out like this. And he goes, for those of you who don't know, once you get a red card, there is no communication allowed to the field, whether you have cell phone, whether you can yell it out from the stands, right? I mean, you've seen the pictures of the guy who hired a scissor lift to stand above the wall to yell out on the field because he was technically out of the ground. I mean, you've seen all these things. They're so silly, but in MLS, you got to go somewhere else. Now, somebody let him go to the stands just above there. And essentially, he just started coaching from there, and nobody moved him, and nobody moved him on. In an interview after the fact posted by Franco Panizo, excuse me, he asked Mascherano like, "Hey, if the coach of Tigres got sent off and was doing that, would you have a problem with it?" And he went on this whole thing. I mean, just this whole line of insanity of I am going to do everything I can to help my players, so I adapted the rules to meet my benefit. Hold on, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find all the quotes here. Just a second. Give me one, just so I can get it spot on for everybody. So the quotes that he says. He asked Javier Mascherano if the other coach did that, would he view it as okay? He didn't answer it directly, which led to an exchange with the media. Franco acknowledges you didn't break a rule, but he thinks, do you think the rule should change the way the All-Star game suspension rule should change? Is how that was phrased. And then there was another exchange. He says, I can shout instructions to a substituted player from wherever I'm at, but the ones who indicated the instructions were other coaches, not me. Weird. If a fan is allowed to be in the middle of the stands using a flare to make smoke signals and a player can see you, why can't I? Okay. In the end, I'm in the same position as any spectator. Yeah, that's the problem. You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be away from everybody else. That's what the red card is for. Whether it was good or bad, I adapted to the rules. I am going to do everything possible to help my players. If someone thinks that's wrong, that's fine by me. And then the kicker for me, and this is the one we're going to focus on the most, so many things are done wrong. Why can't I do something wrong every once in a while? So on that last one, did we just hear Mascherano basically admit that he knew he was breaking the rules and saying, "Oh, well, everybody else does it. Why can't I?"
Yeah, so much for bending the rules. You just admitted that you broke them.
I mean, just absolutely insane, right? Like, and I'm not even going to focus on like if he was sitting in the right area or not, because I assume that if he was in the wrong area, somebody would have come and said, "Hey, you gotta go," right? Nobody moved him, so that my guess is he was probably in the right spot. But to sit there and then openly say, "Yeah, I knew the rules, but I adapted them and I molded them into the way that it would help my players," that's cheating, right? And then to sit down and say, "Oh, and by the way, everybody else breaks the rules, so why can't I?" Directly after the moment where we said, "Hey, remember when we told Messi to break all the rules because it doesn't apply to you because you're Messi?" time and time again, Inter Miami are making it known that they don't care about rules. They don't apply to them, and they're going to break them whenever and however they please. And it's just, I can't wrap my head around it because it feels like it's every week.
I mean, they have a history of it even before Messi joined. Five DPs? I know.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I get it.
it's like Jorge Mas is stepping in and saying, the rules are antiquated, and I'm going to change them by breaking them all until you change them for my favor. That's what it feels like.
Well, you know what? It's like honestly, I don't blame him because keep breaking the rules if nobody's gonna do anything about it. Like I would keep doing it too if I was him. I'm gonna do whatever I can to benefit my team, and if you're not gonna like slap the wrist on me on breaking any of these rules, then like who cares? Are you even breaking the rule then? If you're not getting any punishment, it's like does this rule even exist then? I don't know. Other teams should just start doing it too. Whatever Miami starts doing, they should try to do the exact same thing. And I understand there's certain circumstances where you're just not going to be able to do some of the things that Miami could do, but it's why listen to the rules if these like if this other team is not?
No, it's totally fair and a very good point, right? If you're going to sit here and tell me, oh well, Miami is going to be able to do everything, and we're just going to give them, a talking to, well, then everybody else is going to get to start to do that because all I can deal with a talking to. So my question to you then is, should MLS do something more about it, and what would be the appropriate punishment then? Because it is a Leagues Cup game, it's not a leagues game, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on if this was actually against the rules or not. I don't really know what the rules are for coach sending offs. Like if they have to physically leave the stadium or if they need to like be in the locker room or if where he was is fine. Um, should it be against the rules? I absolutely think so because it literally defeats the entire purpose of the red card. Like there is no reason to send him off if he's just going to go 10 feet backwards and then have a phone call with the assistant referee who's right there. He could have just grabbed a megaphone and probably just had a conversation with him. Forget the phone call. If he loses signal, he'd probably just go borrow one. I think he needs to be like, if that's not the rule already, the rule needs to be that he needs to go to the locker room. Basically, he has to be somewhere where he can have no sight of the game. Like, locker room, out of the stadium, I don't care. That's what happens when the players get sent off. If a player gets sent off, he's not just sitting on the bench, waiting with the rest of his guys. He goes to the locker room. He's sent out of here. Like, it shouldn't just be like, oh, coach is sent off. He goes 10 feet backwards. Like, it defeats the whole purpose. What's the point in giving red cards to the coaches then? I didn't. I realized I never answered your question on what the punishment should be. I mean, I think listen, if you're gonna suspend Messi for a All-Star game violation, I don't see why you wouldn't suspend Mascherano for a Leagues Cup violation. Like if it happens to be in the league, like I think it's fine. Like your league is involved in this tournament. So I don't necessarily see why it should have this like exception. Um I wonder what the rule is for, and maybe you know the answer to this. Like what's the rule for a red card suspension in like the US Open Cup or maybe even like the FA Cup in the Premier League? Like if you get sent off there, are you suspended for the Premier League? Are you suspended for Major League Soccer?
Oh, you are such a Euro snob. You had to bring the FA Cup in there, didn't you? Um,
Well, there's only one American tournament other than Leagues Cup, so I can only pull on US Open Cup. I said US Open Cup first too. All right, so
U.S. Open
put some
Cup,
respect
Leagues
on
Cup, Campeones Cup, playoffs, playoffs,
Campeones Cup. Don't even start with that.
Campeones Cup. How
Playoffs.
how
You're
dare
talking about
how
playoffs?
so an interesting exchange here that I'll share. So Taylor Twellman, obviously one of the guys who broke the story or reacted to the story first, posted that the 2025 tournament regulations. And one of the lists is using unauthorized electronic communication equipment and or behaving in an inappropriate manner as a result of using electronic or communication equipment, 1 to 3 match suspension. Now, the problem is and credit to I'll give credit to all the people who put this out here because these aren't this isn't me doing the research. I'm just taking the comments here. Sam slash FIFA Brit on Twitter put out a response to that saying The rule says unauthorized electronic devices is not allowed. However, the League's Cup correspondent specifically said that cell phone communication are not prohibited. So clearly, that cell phone communication is allowed. There was also a comment here from Mike, who is an Orlando City supporter. Mike A. Spillane is his handle. According to you, he quoted put a quote out there that said, according to both USA Today and ESPN, a Leagues Cup spokesperson indicated over the press box loudspeaker at Chase Stadium during the match that tournament regulations allow a coach to sit in the stands after being sent off. However, they do not allow them to communicate in any way with the bench or influence the match. However, the tournament changes its stance in the hours after the final whistle, where the League's Cup spokesperson informed Franco Painiso, excuse me, I keep messing that up, the guy who posted this whole interview, that the Inter Miami coach was located in a space designated in accordance with tournament regulations, and cell phone communications are not prohibited. So this is where the whole story comes together, basically saying he didn't break any rules. However, the whole thing says that they're not allowed to communicate or influence the bench. Now, Javier Mascherano said that he was talking to a performance analyst up in the booth, but it was pretty clear he was clearly speaking down to the field. At the end of the day, regardless of where you have coaches sit, or if cell phones are allowed or not allowed based on the rules then need to change, because if you get sent off, you cannot impact the game anymore. That's the whole point of a red card, right? So if you get sent off from the bench as a player, if you get sent off from the field, you go to the locker room because you can't be used in the game anymore. If a coach gets sent off, he then cannot sit there and start, calling people and say, "Hey, do this, do that, do this, do that." That's not how this works. So you're very clearly in a position where you are putting influence on the game when you shouldn't be. And I know that this is getting blown up because it's Inter Miami, right? But if anybody else had done this, for a fact people would be looking into it and saying, probably shouldn't be doing that. Maybe we got to change something, right?
Yeah. No, it needs to. It's exactly as you said it. What's the point then? Like, if I'm a coach and I could just sit in the stands and like make a phone call, if I disagree with whatever calls the referee's making, there's no consequence to just berate them. Like, you could just absolutely get on their case all game long. And if you get sent off, who cares? Just go up in the stands, you take a nice comfy seat, you get your assistant manager's phone number, you give him a call, and you say, "All right, I'm talking you through the rest of this game, and we're gonna make sure we're doing fine." In which case, there's no penalty for breaking any like sort of rules to get sent off. Like, might as well, like, honestly, if your team's about to concede, if Mascherano might as well just run onto the field and then just two 2 foot whoever has the ball and just studs up, take him out, get the red card, and then you could just go up into the stands and then just coach the rest of the game from there and save your team from conceding a goal and from being down a player. So, I mean, what's to stop them from doing that at this point?
Yeah, I'm trying to just keep looking through here, and uh, my guess. So here's where I thought that Tigres would have protested the match immediately had he knowingly been doing something he wasn't supposed to, and they didn't, which clearly means that there is some sort of legal gray area where they probably could get away with it. But if we're looking at this, the image behind this is Inter Miami gets away with whatever they want. Anti-MLS and Euro snobs together will look at this and say, "Oh, look, MLS can't punish their star players because they'd lose revenue and it's a Mickey Mouse league and blah 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 blah." So the optics in and of itself are worse than anything your league's cup rules allow or don't allow, right? I don't know if we need to step in and you can, if he's within the rules, they can't do anything about it. But the fact that they left them so absurdly vague to begin with is already a red flag to a tournament that already has so much scrutiny around it, right? It's a good tournament, but every year I feel like there's something more that's like, are we really trying to figure out how to fix this too? Like, it's just silly.
I mean, maybe you could take that as like something good out of this is like, maybe they're pointing out, and it's obviously they're not pointing it out with good intentions. They're pointing it out with bad intentions, but maybe they're pointing out flaws in the rules that need to be fixed. And I just hope that they're actually going to make changes to the rules and not just like be like, "Oh, this is like just be silent on it and just let it happen again."
I also
Or
wonder
like
why.
you know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be like the first time if the Portland Timbers try to do this, Phil Neville gets sent off. He's in the stands. They're gonna slap their wrist so hard. They're gonna be like Neville suspended 3 games, and we're changing the rules.
Yeah, I'm tired of having to go through this, but it feels I also wonder who wrote these rules. Like, is this taken from FIFA? Is this taken from IFAB? Like, who decided to sit down and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have this will never happen, this loophole of having coaches sit two rows above where it is and go from there." And again, I don't want to be a Miami, defendant here, but credit to Javier Mascherano. If he knew the rules were incredibly vague like that, push him. Go ahead. I'm starting to change my opinion on this because the rules are so stupidly written that, go for it. Have fun. But I just think it's going to look, again, it's giving everything a bad look, as it always does. And you can go into the legalese of all the rules that they put out and figure out whether he's within it or without it, but we shouldn't have to get to this point. It should be very clear. If you get sent off, up to the very top of the stadium you go or into the dressing room. There's no sitting with fans in a designated, because that's the thing. The rules state that you go into the dressing room, up into a suite, or in a section of the stadium where with other fans designated by the organization committee. So who in the organization committee sat down and said, where's a really good spot to put sent off coaches? 2 rows above the bench. Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, seriously. Also, I keep reading over that line that you were talking about that Twelman tweeted about like
Uh,
unauthorized electronic and communication equipment. And I'm trying to figure out like what falls under that then. If it's not a cell phone, what are you saying? Like, oh, he can't page the assistant manager. Like he's just gonna be sitting in the like in the stands, sending him pager messages, like being like, or maybe he can't take out the typewriter to like send him a nice letter, type it up in the top of the stand and send him a paper airplane. Like, what is unauthorized then? Like, what other electronic and communication equipment is not allowed other than like a cell phone? What else
somebody
is
su-
there?
somebody suggested drones. So like
Okay, that
using
makes sense.
drone, yeah, so like using drones to see the game, like if you were sent off into the um, dressing room. So you're getting the drone footage and then calling somebody
Hmm.
up saying, "Oh, I'm only using my cell phone," but you got the drone footage right there. And another person said social media to make threats or like incite violence against the referees.
Okay, that's also fair.
Yeah. But regardless, right? Like it just feels like it shouldn't be this gray. Like there are always going to be areas of nuance in referee decisions, but this doesn't need to be. When you get sent off into the locker room, you go up into a suite. You go. No sitting 2 rows above the stadium. I'm not saying that he was in. Maybe he was in the wrong. Maybe he wasn't. I don't think he was. But we shouldn't have to argue about whether he was or wasn't because the organizers decided that was the right place to put him.